Welcome to Shadows of Ceramic, a soothing audiobook designed to guide you into peaceful relaxation. If you enjoy this content and would like to support more sleep stories, please like this video. Before we begin our journey with Elena and her transformative ceramic experience, we'll start with a gentle breathing guidance. If you prefer to skip directly to the story, you can find timestamps for each chapter in the description below. Take a moment to settle into a comfortable position. Let your body sink into your mattress, feeling fully supported and at ease. Adjust your blankets or pillow if you need to, creating a cozy space just for you. This is your time to let go of the day and invite calm and quiet into your evening. Allow the gentle rhythms of Elena's ceramic studio to wash over you, guiding you into a state of deep relaxation. Let's take a soothing breath together. Slowly inhale through your nose, allowing the air to flow easily and naturally. Then, exhale gently through your mouth, like a soft sigh of relief. With each breath, feel your body softening and releasing any tension. Imagine a gentle clay wheel spinning, its rhythmic motion washing away the day's worries. Visualize the soft winter light of Elena's studio, the delicate shadows, the quiet transformation happening in each subtle moment. If your mind begins to wander, that's okay. Just let your thoughts drift by, like clay gently yielding under patient hands, and gently return your attention to your breathing or the sound of my voice. There's nothing you need to do now except listen and allow the story to carry you into rest. Feel the rhythm of creation, the steady heartbeat of healing and renewal. Let it carry away your tensions, your doubts, inviting you into a space of profound peace and gentle possibility. Chapter 1: Awakening the Wheel. The clay waited, soft and formless, a cool promise of possibility resting against Kaylee's palm. Pale winter light filtered through the studio's wide windows, casting muted shadows across the worn wooden floor, transforming the space into a sanctuary of quiet potential. Her hands hovered above the wheel, trembling slightly, not from weakness, but from the delicate anticipation of beginning again. Memories of her last ceramic season lingered like ghost impressions. The sharp critique from her former mentor, the way her hands had forgotten their language of creation, the quiet despair that had settled into her bones like winter dust. Months had passed since she last touched clay, since her hands had known the intimate language of transformation. The wheel stood like a patient companion, its surface smooth and waiting, understanding that creativity cannot be rushed or demanded, but must be invited with gentleness and respect. Kaylee's breath synchronized with the room's quiet. Inhale of possibility, exhale of surrender. Photographs lined the studio walls, her grandmother's hands working clay, her own earlier works capturing moments of unexpected beauty, ceramic pieces that spoke of resilience and grace. Her fingers first touched the clay with a hesitation of reunion, feeling its cool resilience. Each movement was a question, each subtle pressure a conversation. The wheel began to spin, a soft mechanical heartbeat that filled the studio with its rhythmic whisper. Clay began to rise and fall under her touch, not through force, but through a delicate negotiation of touch and intention. Her muscle memory awakened slowly, like a language half forgotten, relearning its own vocabulary of movement and shape. Imperfection emerged naturally, a slight wobble, an uneven rim, and Kaylee found herself breathing deeper, releasing the old impulse to control. Here, in this moment, failure was just another form of learning, another texture in the landscape of creation. The clay responded to her hands not as a material to be conquered, but as a living conversation, a collaboration of touch and surrender. She remembered her grandmother's words. Clay knows what it wants to become. Your job is to listen, not to dictate. Outside, bare tree branches swayed against the window, their movement echoing the subtle rhythms of the wheel. Dust motes danced in filtered light, suspended between stillness and motion, mirroring Kaylee's own state of quiet becoming. Each turn of the wheel was a meditation, each breath a bridge between the external world and her internal landscape. The studio felt alive with possibility. The faded green walls holding decades of creative energy, the worn wooden shelves bearing witness to countless moments of transformation. As the first form began to take shape, not perfect but authentic, Kaylee realized this was more than pottery. This was a return to herself, a reclaiming of space and possibility. The clay held no judgment, only potential. Fragments of her past, the painful critique, the years of self-doubt, the moment she had walked away from her craft, dissolved into the rhythmic spinning of the wheel. Her hands moved with increasing confidence, finding their own rhythm, rediscovering the language of creation that had always been waiting, patient and forgiving. And in this moment, surrounded by soft light and quiet movement, she understood that healing, like ceramics, was not about perfection, but about the beauty of gentle, patient transformation. Each imperfection a testament to the journey, each subtle shape a narrative of resilience. Chapter 2: Rhythms of Restoration. The dawn light crept softly through Kaylee's studio, casting long shadows across the partially formed ceramic piece from yesterday's session. Her hands moved with a newfound deliberateness, gathering tools with a quiet reverence that spoke of rediscovery rather than routine. The morning held a fragile quality, like breath held just before release, promising nothing but potential. Water filled a small ceramic basin, one of her grandmother's pieces, its glaze a subtle blend of blue-gray that seemed to capture the very essence of early morning stillness. Kaylee dipped her hands, feeling the cool liquid connect her to the memory of countless mornings spent in this studio, watching her grandmother's hands move with the same patient rhythm she was now reclaiming. The previous day's clay waited, covered in a damp cloth that preserved its potential. Kaylee understood now that creativity was not about forcing form, but about listening to the material, to her hands, to the quiet voice of intuition that lived beneath the surface of things. She unwrapped the clay with the tenderness of someone reuniting with an old friend, feeling its subtle give, its memory of yesterday's touch. Her fingers began their work slowly, not with the urgency of performance, but with the gentle curiosity of exploration. Each movement was a question, each touch a conversation. The wheel spun, not frantically, but with a measured rhythm that matched her breathing. Inhale, the clay rises, exhale, the shape transforms. There was a meditation in this process, a healing that transcended the physical act of creation. Imperfections emerged naturally, a slight asymmetry here, a gentle ripple there. Kaylee no longer saw these as failures, but as the language of the clay itself. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Every mark is a story. Every irregularity is a breath of life. The ceramic piece began to take shape, not as a perfect object, but as a testament to the beauty of becoming. Outside, the winter garden slowly awakened. Bare branches traced delicate patterns against the pale sky, their movement a subtle counterpoint to the rhythmic spinning of the wheel. A single sparrow landed on the windowsill, watching with a quiet curiosity that mirrored Kaylee's own internal landscape of gentle discovery. The studio held memories like soft breathing, layers of past creations, abandoned dreams, moments of both struggle and grace. Kali felt these memories not as weight, but as a gentle support. Each piece of pottery that lined the shelves was a marker of a journey, a testament to the resilience of creativity that could always be rekindled, always be reborn. Her hands moved with increasing confidence, but never with force. There was a conversation happening between her palms and the clay, a dialogue of touch and response. The ceramic form began to emerge, not perfect but alive. It held the story of her return, of patience, of the quiet courage it takes to begin again. As the morning light deepened, Kaylee realized this was more than just creating a piece of pottery. This was a form of healing, of reconnecting with a part of herself she had believed was lost. Each turn of the wheel was a meditation, each breath a bridge between what was and what could be. The first ceramic piece of her renewed journey took shape, a vessel that was both fragile and strong, imperfect and beautiful. Kaylee stepped back, allowing herself a moment of quiet recognition. She had not conquered the clay, but had instead entered into a partnership with it, learning once again the art of gentle transformation. Chapter 3. Breathing with Clay. The early morning mist pressed against Kaylee's studio windows, transforming the familiar space into a landscape of soft-edged possibility. Her breathing synchronized with the wheel's gentle rotation, each exhale a subtle release, each inhale a quiet invitation to presence. The clay responded to her touch like a living thing, responsive, yielding, holding the memory of every subtle movement. Today's exploration felt different. Where previous sessions had been about relearning technique, this moment carried a deeper intention. Kaylee understood now that ceramics was never just about creating an object, but about the intimate dialogue between hands, material, and the unspoken landscape of inner experience. Her fingers moved with increased sensitivity, tracing the clay's emerging form with a tenderness that spoke of healing. Soft winter light filtered through the studio, casting delicate shadows that seemed to breathe with the same rhythm as her hands. The ceramic piece began to take shape, not as a perfect vessel, but as a narrative of transformation. Each subtle curve carried the story of her return, of patience learned through quiet persistence. Her grandmother's old tools, worn wooden ribs, soft sponges, delicate trimming tools, watched from their rack, like silent witnesses. Outside, a gentle wind moved through bare tree branches, their intricate patterns mirroring the emerging ceramic form. Kaylee noticed how similar they were, both holding the potential of growth, both shaped by unseen forces of patience and resilience. The studio felt alive with this understanding, a space where transformation was not a destination, but a continuous, gentle process. Her hands remembered movements older than memory, techniques passed down through generations. Each touch was a conversation, each subtle pressure a negotiation between intention and surrender. The clay responded not with resistance, but with a fluid grace that seemed to understand something fundamental about change. That true transformation happens not through force, but through listening. Memories drifted through her consciousness like the soft light, fragments of her journey, moments of doubt, the sharp critique that had once silenced her creativity. But here, in this moment, those memories lost their edge. They became simply part of the narrative, threads in a larger tapestry of becoming. The clay held no judgment, only potential. As the form took shape, Kaylee realized this was more than a ceramic vessel. It was a map of her inner landscape, a three-dimensional reflection of her journey back to creativity. Imperfections emerged naturally. A slight asymmetry here, a gentle ripple there, each mark a testament to the beauty of authenticity, of embracing the unexpected. The wheel continued its soft mechanical heartbeat, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with her breath, with the subtle movements of winter light, with the quiet awakening of the world outside. Kaylee understood now that creativity was not about perfection, but about presence, about showing up, about being willing to be transformed. Her hands moved with increasing confidence, but never with force. There was a conversation happening between her palms and the clay, between memory and possibility, between the person she had been and the artist she was becoming. The ceramic piece emerged, fragile yet strong, imperfect yet beautiful. As the morning deepened, Kaylee stepped back. The vessel stood as a quiet testament, not just to her return to ceramics, but to the profound truth of gentle transformation. In this moment, surrounded by soft light and the whisper of possibility, she understood that healing, like art, was never about reaching a destination. It was about the journey itself, about breathing, about being willing to be shaped by unseen hands. Chapter 4. Quiet Transformations. Twilight settled into Kaylee's studio like a soft breath, transforming the space into a landscape of muted possibilities. The ceramic pieces from recent weeks lined the shelves, each one a testament to her journey, each curve and imperfection holding the quiet story of her return to creativity. Shadows stretched across the wooden floor, blending memory and present moment into a single fluid narrative of becoming. The piece she had been working on for weeks stood at the center of her workspace, a vessel that seemed to hold more than its physical form suggested. Its walls carried the rhythm of her hands, the subtle imprints of her journey, not perfect, but profoundly authentic. Kaylee understood now that healing was never about erasing the past, but about creating space for transformation. Memories drifted through her consciousness like the evening light. Fragments of the critique that had silenced her, the years of self-doubt that had kept her away from the wheel. But here, in this liminal space between day and night, those memories lost their sharp edges. They became simply part of her story, threads in a larger tapestry of understanding. Outside, the winter garden held its breath. Bare branches traced delicate patterns against the deepening sky, their intricate silhouettes a mirror of the ceramic pieces that surrounded Kali. She realized how similar they were, both shaped by unseen forces, both holding the potential of growth, both beautiful in their imperfection. Her hands moved across the ceramic surface, not with the urgency of creation, but with the gentleness of recognition. Each touch was a conversation, each subtle movement a meditation on the journey that had brought her back to this moment. The studio felt alive with possibility, with a quiet understanding that transformation happens in the smallest of moments. The photographs that lined the walls, her grandmother's hands working clay, her own earlier works, seemed to breathe in the soft light. They were not just images, but living memories, a connection to a lineage of creativity that ran deeper than technique. Kaylee felt the presence of those who had come before her, their wisdom flowing through her hands like an unspoken language. As twilight deepened, the ceramic piece seemed to glow from within. Its imperfections, the slight asymmetry, the gentle ripples, were no longer mistakes to be corrected, but a testament to the beauty of authenticity. Kali understood that art, like healing, was never about achieving perfection, but about being willing to be vulnerable, to show up, to be transformed. The wheel stood silent, a patient witness to her journey. Its mechanical heart had held the rhythm of her return, had been the constant companion in her process of rediscovery. Kaylee realized that creativity was not something that could be forced or demanded, but something that must be invited, listened to, respected. Her grandmother's words echoed softly in the studio. Every mark is a story. Every irregularity is a breath of life. The ceramic piece before her was more than an object. It was a map of her inner landscape, a three-dimensional reflection of her journey back to herself. As night settled fully into the studio, Kali stepped back. The vessel stood as a quiet testament to the profound truth of gentle transformation. In this moment, surrounded by soft shadows and the whisper of possibility, she understood that healing was never about reaching a destination. It was about the journey itself, about breathing, about being willing to be shaped by unseen hands. Chapter 5. Soft Horizons. The changing season painted Kali's studio with a delicate palette of transformation. Spring light filtered through the windows, casting soft shadows across the collection of ceramic pieces that now told the story of her journey, each vessel a chapter, each imperfection a moment of quiet revelation. The studio no longer felt like a space of past silence, but of profound awakening. Outside, the garden mirrored her internal landscape. Tender green shoots pushed through dark earth, revealing the persistent promise of renewal. Kali understood now that growth was never linear, never perfect. Like these emerging plants, like the ceramics that lined her shelves, transformation happened in subtle, almost imperceptible movements. Her grandmother's photograph watched from its place on the shelf, hands deep in clay, an expression of complete absorption. Kaylee recognized that same expression in herself now. The critique that had once silenced her, the years of creative withdrawal, felt like distant memories. They were simply part of her narrative, threads in a larger tapestry of becoming. The ceramic pieces she had created over these past months held a collective story. Some were symmetrical, others beautifully irregular. Each represented a different moment of her return, a breath, a surrender, a quiet revelation. They were not just objects, but living documents of her journey, witnesses to her capacity for healing. Her hands moved across the surfaces, tracing the memory of their creation. She realized that the process of making ceramics was not about controlling the clay, but about entering into a conversation with it, listening, responding, allowing. The wheel had been her meditation, her pathway back to herself. The studio held the accumulated wisdom of generations, her grandmother's tools, the photographs, the shelves lined with decades of creative exploration. Kaylee felt connected to something larger than herself, a lineage of artists who understood that creativity was not about perfection, but about presence, about showing up, about being willing to be transformed. Outside, a gentle wind moved through the emerging leaves, their movement a subtle dance of potential. Kaylee understood that her journey with ceramics was not about reaching a destination, but about the continuous process of becoming. Each piece, each moment at the wheel was an invitation to be present, to breathe, to surrender. The morning light continued to shift, revealing new textures, new possibilities. The ceramic pieces caught the light differently now, no longer just objects, but living narratives of resilience. Kaylee saw her own reflection in their surfaces, not the person she had been, not the person she thought she should be, but the person she was becoming. Her grandmother's words echoed softly. Every mark is a story. Every irregularity is a breath of life. Kaylee realized that healing, like art, was never about erasing the past. It was about creating space for transformation, about understanding that beauty is not found in perfection, but in authenticity. As the day unfolded, Kaylee stood in her studio, surrounded by her ceramics, bathed in soft light, connected to a lineage of creativity that ran deeper than technique. She had returned to herself, not through force, but through gentle persistence, not by demanding, but by listening. And in this moment, she understood that the most profound transformations happen in the quietest of spaces, in the softest of breaths, in the subtlest